look at the body of a human. You can see a human as a body. You can see a human as a collection of organs. You can see human a collection of cells, of molecules, of atoms, of subatomic particles, and etc. The usage of electromagnetic pulses, the pulse technology, is similar to Russian sonar. So you go to Russian sonar, you increase the vibration of your cells. The vibration of the coherent cells can sustain itself, but the vibration of the incoherent cells can sustain itself, and the cancer cells get destroyed in Russian sonar. I have cases when, in my practice, when people got cured from cancer in Russian sonar.
Hello, everyone. We are here with Dr. Irene Caesar and Mike from Milan. Dr. Irene Caesar, she's founder of Wave Genome, and she has developed the technology and products that are extremely useful for our health at the gene levels, which is the base, and she's going to describe us a little bit about this. We have a limited time, so it's of course impossible, decades of research and development to be fitted in a few tens of minutes, but it's a starting point. So Dr. Irene, welcome in my show, let's say, in Mike's show, and I would like to give us a very short introduction about yourself, first of all.
Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in your projects for cooperation, and specifically big thanks for Mike for many years of cooperation and connection, spiritual connection. My name is Dr. Irene Caesar. I am a founder and president of the American company incorporated in the state of Connecticut in 2010. It is a successful company, and before the Russian military operating, making about 6 figures a month. Main market is in Germany, and research and development is in Russia, because this technology is still classified in the United States. It is military grade, used by top military and security officers, and it is the offshoot of the so-called black KGB box science, specifically which made a breakthrough in the late 1990s. These people also had produced mathematical trajectories for the newly invented Russian missile, middle-range missile caliber. But after a few years, I had gone to the new level, because I was initially the author of the wave crystal theory of everything, which I had created in the 1985, which gave the offshoot to my fundamental theory of wave optics and chromosomes. And nobody was even close to this theory, not Gurevich, Paponin, Garyaev, Tirtishny, Grzhnachiev, Kozarev. They were not even close. They were using the flat quantum physics paradigm. And in the West also there is this flat paradigm quantum physics without the idea of the condensed matter as first the inverse wave paradigm of the scalar wave, when the wave is reflected back upon itself in the generator of the scalar waveform, when the peak of the forward-going wave is annulled by the truth of the same wave when the wave is reflected back upon itself, thus creating the zero signal, not any kind of frequency, but the zero signal. Then this scalar wave gets scaled to create the scalar wave diffraction grating. This is the widespread term. But in fact, it is not the scalar wave diffraction grating, it is the scalar wave refraction grating, because the scalar wave gets scaled and the signal gets refracted towards the zero center of the zero field, one and the same for chromosome and galaxy, and located inside the chromosome. This is the essence of the holographic principle, which states that the entire being is inside every matrix point. So this is our ancestral knowledge, which is not quite understood in the West. That's why Leonard Susskind had offered his own interpretation of the holographic principle, which is completely wrong, and which states that the hologram is minus one dimension, and it produces plus one dimension as a three-dimensional image. So the hologram itself is actually the cover of the some three-dimensional continuum, which is completely wrong, because according to our ancestral tradition, the macrocosm is completely contained within the microcosm. So the point with my company was that I have founded my company in 2010 independently of any development of this technology in Russia.
Yes.
Because in 2009, I have declassified the major technological secret of the United States for producing the DNA computers by D. Shaw Group. D. Shaw is the professor of the Columbia University, and he has a hedge fund. And in 2009, he was considered to be the head of the technocratic elite of the United States. He was the head of the scientific committee by Barack Obama. And I had received my PhD in the United States at the time, and I was looking for a job, right, after getting out of the graduate school. And I have seen the advertisement in the Chronicles of the Higher Education, which stated that the D. Shaw Group was looking for the extraordinary individuals to work in this hedge fund. And it didn't matter, they said, whether this person was a painter, a poet, and it was very weird to me, because I had friends which were the managers for JP Morgan and traders, and I knew that it was impossible that the hedge fund was hiring painters and poets.
Yes, not scientists. Not scientists.
So I immediately understood that D. Shaw Group, and I looked up the internet. I immediately understood that D. Shaw Group was looking for the donors of blood for DNA computers, because DNA computers are working for the live on the live blood.
Correct.
And I was invited for the phone interview, and at that time I had a company working with China, a very successful company, so I was accomplished on many fronts, and they invited me to the interview. And the major point is that I was invited to the United States in 1994 with the status of extraordinary ability. So I was precisely the person they were looking for.
Exactly.
And I was given the working visa of extraordinary ability in 2 weeks, which is extraordinary, and green card of extraordinary ability in 6 months. And just at my status, showing the money I was making to support the family of 5. So I was precisely the person that they were looking for. And I sent them the electronic letter, the email, that I admire the project of super soldier, Superman as the DNA computer. So I was immediately taken under very heavy surveillance, and I believe that Anna Chapman case was basically how the United States Secret Services, made it equal with Russians, because I have declassified their major secret. And after that, the entire internet went underground. So you will not be able to read even now anything about DNA computers on the World Wide Web. And I have psychic abilities, and in early 1980s, when I had created my theory of wave crystals, we had extraordinary events in our home. Clocks were working, started working without being wound, and all clocks, even being broken, started working. So many kind of stuff, this kind of things were in my life. And during my career as the founder president of Wave Genome LLC, I have proven that I have these abilities. And in 2015, I was subjected to the attack by electronic generator. And as my, at that time, boyfriend told me that I have broken this generator. So in the very close circles, I am famous for this fact. Because this kind of generator, which increases the frequency of heart, was used to the left and to the right to eliminate people who were either competitors in the technological sphere or political competitors or just dissidents. So, and the point with my company is that every successful company should have three things. First of all, paradigm shift company. Really the company which makes real change in technology. The first thing this company should have fundamental theory. So really some new fundamental theory. Yeah. And as you know, it is a big problem in quantum physics right now with creating the theory of condensed matter. So people that they just can't create it, because they don't have my theory
information
of wave in wave crystals. You see, because in wave crystals, the matter becomes condensed when it gets involuted. So it is the process of involution towards the zero sense of the zero field, and it has nothing to do with frequencies, because this wave crystal is non-local and has the infinite number of frequencies, waves, and particles. Yeah. You see?
Yeah.
So if you have matrix point, you can find any particle in this matrix point. Look at the body of a human. You see? You can see a human as a body. You can see a human as a collection of organs. You can see human a collection of cells, of molecules, of atoms, of subatomic particles, and etc. You see?
Yep.
So the company should have first the fundamental theory, which I had from 1985, wave crystals, and it was published. You see, in Russia, by Van Fedorov publishing house, which was the biggest publishing house in Russia at that moment.
Yes.
And I have this publication.
In 2015.
Besides my, notes, because I was writing notes every day for many, many years until now. And besides my notes, I have handwritten. I have the publication, which is proving that I have this idea of wave crystals.
Yes.
Which precisely was the idea that there are unfolded signals and folded signals. And when the signal gets folded, it gets involuted. So you get your condensed matter, you see? Because Americans right now, they got to the point of DLIP, direct laser interference patterning, which is used right now by NASA to create materials with antibacterial properties, which is actually human technology, which is used to increase the coherence of the systematic whole. You see? To make materials more conductive, to use them in quantum computing, and etc. Yeah. But still, direct laser interference patterning is a flat paradigm technology. It doesn't have the idea of involution of signal, and so making it holographic signals, because only the holographic signal can be transmitted remotely and instantaneously. Superlunar, as they say, you see? And in 2012, I had created the idea, the formulation of the implication of the holographic principle. If the entire being So now note that I don't use the universe, like multiple universe. No, I use the notion the being, which is infinite and eternal, no matter what.
Correct.
It doesn't have space and time because it is infinite and eternal.
Yes, being, yes.
So space is in time emerges, this idea of emergence, and gets destroyed. But the being still is infinite and eternal. So if this being is entirely with every matrix point, then every matrix point is not simply different from any other matrix point, but is unique. You see? So each one of us is eternal and infinite soul, or whatever you can call it, wave matrix, A-day, monad, whatever. And this soul is unique and non-local. The more non-local it is, the more unique it is. You see? Correct. The more involuted it is, the more distant it covers in the remote and instantaneous transmission.
Yeah, no local cannot be identified in one's. Yes. Yeah.
Notwithstanding any constants, you see?
Yeah.
Notwithstanding any speed of light.
Yes.
You see? Because why light? Why they use the term light? It's energy, and when you use the correct term energy, then it immediately understandable that it is pointless to talk about the finite energy in the infinite being.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
So getting back to the initial idea, so the successful company should have the fundamental theory, it should have the technology developed upon this fundamental theory, and it should create the model, the paradigm that can be patented or presented in the peer-reviewed scientific journal, and the company should have either the patent or the publication in the peer-reviewed scientific journal, establishing the intellectual priority for this company. So nobody would be able to corrupt this idea.
Correct.
And to use it in some kind of incorrect ways. So my company has all these points covered at that moment. So I have the fundamental theory, I had created the technology based upon the polarized laser bioholography, which operates with tetrapoles. You see? So if you look at the Russian research, right, they achieve Kozarev, Papunin, Garyaev, Tirtishny, they were all talking about wide spectrum electromagnetic frequencies, radiation.
Yes.
You see? So I'm talking about zero signal, holographic signal. So to operate with the holographic signal, you should create a capacitor because the scalar wave annuls itself. So it can be successfully used to annul the generators of the pathological energy in your brain, but it annuls itself. So, for example, we use sugar and salt to preserve vegetables, meats, and fish, because sugar and salt are crystals. You see? So I use crystals, you see, and the world is 93% energy and 7% particles. So every crystal is basically a wave crystal. So, but if you use too much sugar and salt, we annul our metabolic processes. So we should use them in a measure, right? And we should take care that the scalar wave does not get self-extinguished. So we need to create the scalar waveform generators, which actually sustain the scalar wave long enough so that it gets scaled, so that every segment of the scalar wave becomes itself a scalar wave, from macro to micro dimensions. So we have the larger scalar wave, which corresponds with its wavelength to the size of the resonator, and with the trigger signal, which has coherent nature, meaning it's produced by the laser, you see? So nothing that is not produced by the laser has nothing to do in the quantum leap and paradigm shift technologies. So this should be laser-based technologies. And then if the trigger signal is long enough, every segment of the scalar wave itself becomes a scalar wave. From macro to micro dimensions, creating refraction, which essentially is involution. So the signal gets involuted. You see, coming from the size of the body, going to the size of the organ, to the size of the cell, molecule, atom, and subatomic particles, it is collecting all these structures into one coherent systematic whole. And this is what condensed matter or matter energy, which is convertible back and forth between matter and energy. This is what it is. And my company uses Electrets. And our ancestors used Electrets for millennia. And Electrets are polymer crystals. So crystals produce the holographic signal, the coherent holographic signal. You can treat yourself with mineral crystals. That is the point of wearing crystals. So our chromosome is supposed to have the exact number of nucleotides, no more and no less, and in the specific geometrical shape. The same gene gets expressed in the dysfunctional individuals and species by acrocentric chromosome, which is analogous to the nearsighted or farsighted eye out of focus. And the same gene gets expressed in functional individuals and species by the metacentric chromosome, which is analogous to the well-focused centered eye crystal. And this metacentric chromosome has the shape of the equilateral cross. That's why our ancestors used the equilateral cross. They were crossing themselves, and they used cross as the kind of protection symbol, a protective symbol. And the same gene gets expressed in monkeys by acrocentric chromosome, and the same gene gets expressed in humans via metacentric chromosome. The same gene gets expressed in wild horses, пржевальских horses, which look like donkeys via acrocentric chromosome, and in domesticated horses with increased mental and physical abilities via metacentric chromosome. Children with Down syndrome have extra acrocentric chromosome. So genetics is not about genes, because we are constantly changing. You see, our blood completely changes in 90 days. You see, our body, every cell, every atom, we are the flow of particles. Basically, we are the excitation in the global universal field of energy. You see, we are excitation. So to be wholesome, we need to be a systematic whole. And so this wholesomeness, coherence, is the structural quality, is not the chemical, biological, electrical, or even magnetic quality, because the scalar wave annuls any electromagnetic signal. So it is not about frequency, it is about structure. So to cure ourselves, we need to take care of the structure of our chromosomes, and using Electrets precisely is restoring the structure of our chromosomes. And because the scalar wave is non-local, that's why using polymer crystals is effective. The molecules in our brain are smaller than molecules in our body. That's why after 3 weeks of infection, no oral medication will cure you, only intravenous medication, you see? So, or using Electrets, polymer crystals, which cross the encephalitic blood-brain barrier, because they create a scalar wave which is non-local. Again, the scalar wave annuls any signal when it gets reflected back upon itself, and the peak of the forward-going wave is annulled by the trough of the same wave when this wave is reflected back upon itself. Then each segment of the scalar wave also becomes a scalar wave from macro to micro dimensions, up, down, and down, up. So from micro to macro, from macro to micro. That's why scalar wave is used for the remote transmission, you see, of signals. And so scalar wave gets scaled. That's why it is non-local, and that's why it passes through the encephalitic barrier. This is the secret of the Ayurvedic medicine success. The entire Ayurveda or folk medicine is based upon the use of electrets. Electret is a word consisting of two roots, electrical and magnet. It is the crystal, which is a tetrapole systematic pole, meaning that one strand of the scalar wave goes one way, has two poles, and goes back, has another two poles. So making it a tetrapole systematic pole, not a dipole. It is very important, a tetrapole systematic pole. And our ancestors used electrets for millennia in the liquid crystal form. That's why we have a notion of God anointed kings and to anoint for the kingdom. The kings were anointed with incense, usually with frankincense or basilic. That's why we have the notion of Basileus as a king. And basilic, where there's an architectural structure, where the king Basileus is anointed with the basilic as incense. Then our ancestors used electrets in the aerosol crystal form, burning incense in the basilica, in the cathedral. And still now we burn incense in our homes. If you go to Asia, they all burn incense because only in this way they can cope with the incoherent nucleotide structures, which are bacteria and viruses. And our ancestors used and still use electrets in the solid crystal form. Before the revolution of 1917, every Russian was wearing ladanka, which had it's a pendant, egg-shaped pendant, and inside there was the solid resin of the polymer crystal of frankincense. The resin of frankincense.
Okay.
Ladan is the word for frankincense in Russia. So my company just took this ancient, many millennia tradition of our ancestors to create a new ladanka, a new pendant, which has this electret in a specific structure, which is not simply electret. It has the elements which does not allow scalar wave to get extinguished, and we coat electrets via lasers. So this is the point, that you can coat an electret when it goes from the liquid crystal state into the solid crystal state. And our ancestors were doing this for millennia, praying over the candles and then burning these candles is precisely this kind of ritual, praying over the water, which is inside the bowl, cupular bowl, which is the dome-shaped bowl, which is precisely the generator of the scalar wave. So the point with my company is that before my company in Russia, scientists had already coded electrets with frequencies, but only my company had started to code electrets with wave matrices as systematic holes of frequencies, and using these wave matrices precisely of the humans. So I was the first scientist in the world to code electrets with the wave matrices of humans, making them individual. Right. And my company was the first company in the world to treat these matrices, wave matrices, as bioholograms, and the first company in the world to create these electric-based site generators via lasers. And site generators what is the name, where it is from.
Yeah.
The name is from Schrödinger. He created psi function, you see. So psi function creates psi generators, you see.
Exactly.
And my major product, second birth generator, is based upon our ancestral tradition of the second birth, you see. And second, born for the second time, Dionysus, you see. He was born for the second time with the greater coherence of his systematic whole. And the second birth generator is the scalar wave capacitor. So this is the major point of my technology. So you don't just use lasers. You use specific lasers with mirrors inside that create the scalar wave, or you use a laser within the generator of the form, of the scalar wave form, which, for example, Ras sarcophagus. I use the green laser, but the product, the item,
reflecting inside,
is the, specifically the generator of the scalar waveform. You see? Right. And this generator of the scalar waveform should consist of two parts. First part should amplify the signal via overlaying the same wave over itself. In this way, not allowing the scalar wave to get self-extinguished. And the second part is specifically the scalar waveform generator. So, for example, the helmets of our ancestors had the onion shape, the same with the Russian Orthodox Church's domes. Why onion shape? Because the onion shape is the perfect shape to not allow the scalar wave to get self-extinguished, because the top part is the pyramidal part, and the pyramid is angular, so that it reflects signal sideways, and the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection, and being reflected sideways, the wave is overlaid with itself, and when the wave is overlaid with itself, it increases its amplitude, so that the scalar wave does not get self-extinguished. And the spherical part of this onion shape creates the scalar wave. The same with the Nepalese ball, the same thing. It has the angular momentum here, you see, at the edge, which produces the sound, and the spherical part which produces the scalar wave. So it works together. Without these two components, you do not get the treatment via the scalar wave, because the scalar wave gets self-extinguished. And scalar wave should get scaled. It should get the long enough coherent signal, coherent meaning with the same frequency, to get scaled, meaning it gets involuted. So the whole systematic whole gets involuted, condensed and condensed and condensed. And when it gets a specific point, it gets non-local. And non-locality is based upon the identity of the refraction code. If we have two copies of the same wave matrix with the same refraction code, the signal gets transmitted remotely and instantaneously, because in the quantum non-locality, where there is no time and space, these two copies constitute the same systematic whole. You see? Okay. And I give you an example. There is a very beautiful example. In Crimea, in Russia, in the very famous park Partenit, there is a famous opera gazebo, which is a cupola-based structure, 5 meters diameter. And usually there are crowds coming into this architectural structure. And if you stand beneath the cupola, the center of the cupola, the sound of your voice is greatly increased. But when you go to the sides of this gazebo, right? And you whisper something. The sound of your whisper gets extinguished within a meter from you in a loud crowd. But the person standing on the other side of this cupola hears this whisper precisely, you see? So the whisper is transmitted not via the sound wave, you see? It is transmitted by some other kind of transmission. And this is demonstrated in this structure as a kind of a miracle, you see? And this is why Russian Orthodox churches, they were built precisely according to the same refraction code of every cupola shape used inside the church as the scalar waveform generator, starting with domes, sarcophagi of the saints, of the bells, bowls for praying over this water within the bowls, so that every person going into the church with his prayer was transmitting instantaneously and remotely his prayer to every other Russian Orthodox church across the huge territory of the Holy Mother Russia. So this is the secret of quantum computing. The quantum computing secret is not in making kind of close to absolute zero temperature. It's not the secret, because as Schrödinger said, chromosome is a periodic crystal, he said, you see? So the two chromatids during cell division, they form out of the chaotic chromatin. And then these two chromatids form a chromosome. And our cell division depends upon the shape of the chromosome. The chromosome should have the specific number of nucleotides, no more, no less, in a specific geometrical form. And mRNA vaccines give people turbo cancer, encephalitis on the way to the prion disease, all kind of autoimmune reactions, because these mRNA infection, so-called vaccines, injections, they insert extra superfluous nucleotides into our system, and due to homology, this nucleotide gets inserted into our RNA and DNA, like a key into the keyhole, you see? Gene silencing also. So, and if you connect graphene to this homologous nucleotide, you can then bombard this gene, which is locked already, right? Via electromagnetic 5D radiation, making gene silencing even worse. And again, if the chromosome gets extra nucleotides, it gets broken, and the structural damage in chromosomes is the major cause for disease. The major cause for cancer, the major cause for encephalitis, for HIV, AIDS.
Broken or modified chromosomes, basically.
Oh, excuse me?
So the base of any disease, broken or modified chromosomes.
Yes, so structural damage in chromosomes is the major cause for disease. So to cure yourself, to increase your well-being, to improve your well-being, you should deal with the structural damage in chromosomes. And you cannot improve the structure of your chromosomes by inserting more and more homologous nucleotides, you see? So all this kind of ideas of the Trump administration for curing cancer by inserting more homologous nucleotides is simply total and complete scientific illiteracy, I would say, illiteracy. So these are people who do not understand the ABCs of science, you see? And because our chromosome is supposed to have the exact number of nucleotides in the exact shape, our immune system tries to get rid of these superfluous nucleotides. And because these superfluous nucleotides got inserted into our system, it attacks itself. That's why we get these autoimmune reactions, you see? When any organ can fail, You see, and then we get the pathogenic priming. What is pathogenic priming? Pathogenic priming is that when we get the second infection or the extra load of the same homologous nucleotides, the disease is heavier than in the first infection. You see, so immunity does not develop in principle. So there is no immunity for HIV, no immunity for the Lyme disease, no immunity for cancer, which can be considered as a kind of infection. See, so this is called pathogenic priming. Also, we get antibody-dependent enhancement. What is it? It is when the extra load of antibodies in our body testifies to the heavier case of a disease. So when there was this 201 event codenamed COVID, they were telling people that the more antibodies you have, the more immune protection you get. This is a total and complete lie. It is either a criminal lie or a total complete scientific illiteracy. So, the number of antibodies testifies to the heavier case. The more the number of the antibodies, the heavier the disease is. And everybody who had Lyme disease many years prior to COVID-19, they know that in United States of America, there is, there is right now, but there was a standard for the number of antibodies you should have to be considered sick with the Lyme disease. If the number of the antibodies you had was lower than their standard, you were not considered sick with the Lyme disease, and you were rejected the treatment. The same is with blood transfusion, blood donation. If a person had Lyme disease antibodies in his blood, he could not donate his blood for money in the United States. So right now, people are loaded with the extra load of superfluous extra nucleotides in their system. So how my company can help in this kind of situation, right? So first of all, my company had developed the new kind of semiconductor, which is exclusive semiconductor, selenium bivalent, 2-valent selenium, which is increasing the bioconductivity of your cells. So when you get this load of nucleotides, the bioconductivity is lowered. You see, and the signal doesn't go from brain to your body. You lose your mind-body connection, and you get, areas of your body which are completely disconnected from the brain, and the brain doesn't even see them because this, you understand, right? This load of extra nucleotides are unfamiliar to our brain. They do not correspond to the systematic whole, which is supposed to have the exact number of nucleotides and in the exact geometrical shape. So the brain simply disconnects from this area of your body. Then you get this organ failure, besides autoimmune reactions, right? Then you get cancer, turbo cancer. You get autoimmune reaction, which get transformed into AIDS. The syndrome of acquired immunodeficiency, because immune system attacks itself, and finally it destroys itself. Exactly. So to deal with turbo cancer, with AIDS, with HIV, with long COVID, you should deal with the structural damage in chromosomes. You should get rid of superfluous nucleotides, right? So my company had developed this selenium bivalent organic selenium, which is exclusive to my company, because in the West they produce by 6-valent and 4-valent selenium, which is highly toxic and useless because it produces free radicals and is more toxic than useful. And my company's bivalent selenium is non-toxic, is even in large quantities, and it is an old product used before me in Russia. developed by the Russian Scientific Institute. But the novelty of my company consists in the combination of selenium with bivalent organic selenium with electrets. Three most strong electrets, the strongest electrets: crystal hindi, resveratrol, and quercetin. And when people use quercetin during COVID-19, and when Judy Mikovits was telling you to use essential oils, she was not able to explain why essential oils, while quercetin helps. Because they're electrets. You see, she just doesn't have my theory of wave optics and wave crystals and wave optics and chromosomes to explain why quercetin helps. And there are three of them, right? Three. And together with selenium, they constitute the scalar wave form capacitor. What does this mean? This means that capacitor does not allow scalar wave to get self-extinguished, because either bimetal or semiconductor like selenium collects and amplifies the signal.
Yeah. Okay, that's quite interesting. So, and this this product, this formulation, it is a physical product, like in the capsules. It's not just the digital, the waveforms with a signature of the product. It is physical product, correct? Someone can take it.
Yes, and I sell the selenium with quercetin, crystal hindi, and resveratrol for many years, especially and specifically and mostly to Germany. And Indians just recently had released a very successful product, anti-cancer product, after successful clinical trials, which is the combination of copper and resveratrol. Resveratrol is precisely this resin kind of polymer crystal, which is produced by plants when they are subjected to chemical, biological, physical, and climate and other electromagnetic stress. You see? Okay. So they combined resveratrol with copper, creating precisely their scalar waveform capacitor, right? But because they did not the strong anti-cancer properties, but because they did not have my theory of wave optics in wave crystals and wave optics in chromosomes, they did not realize this idea to its full realization. Yeah. And my company used the combination of resveratrol with selenium, because our nervous system runs on selenium. And in the eye of an eagle, there are 2,000 times more selenium than in the human eye. And that's why an eagle has their much more sharper vision than a human. And selenium is responsible for the transformation of the external signal, frequency or whatever signal, right, into the nervous signal, you see. And this combination precisely creates the product that deals with neurological damage. And if you want to clean your blood, you take iron, because our blood is liquid iron, and you use this iron with electrets, you see. So if you want to deal with blood, you use iron and electrets. If you want to deal with your nervous system, you use selenium with electret, with some electret. And the strongest electret is crystal hindi. It is the only medication, folk medication, which is recommended by Prophet Muhammad in Hadith, in his sacred teachings. You see, the only one. And it is very strong. It should be used as a powder, not as a pill or as a capsule. And it is 1 teaspoon for 350 milliliters of warm water. And my product, selenium with crystal hindi, gives the best results.
And the sources, usually this is coming from?
Excuse me?
the source of this is usually from...
the source of crystal hindi.
Yeah.
Crystal hindi is considered to be the king of medicine in India and is forbidden for export in India, from India. Can you imagine?
Okay, so it's only sold inside.
This is how important and how effective this product is. You see, it's tremendously important if it is forbidden for export from India. So we use crystal hindi from Pakistan and China, where it is produced on the commercial basis, you see.
Okay, excellent. So someone, if we will combine the formula with the selenium and the other item, the other substances, and the PSI generator.
Well, the PSI generators, right, that I produce, the electret-based PSI generators, which have some specific structure that doesn't allow this electret to get scalar wave self-extinguished. It's not just electret within a capsule, you see, understand, right? So it's something more complicated inside the pendant, right, which is a know-how. And then it is structured on nano level when it goes from the liquid crystal form into the solid crystal form via the special laser, which is not any laser. It is a laser with the mirrors inside, which was used by Garyaev also, but we use more advanced version, which is was invented in Russia, you see. It is the laser which is itself a generator of the scalar waveform. You understand, right? Because the laser itself, just on its own, it's simply the origin of the coherent signal. That's all, you see. So to make a laser into the scalar waveform generator, you should use either this laser within the specific, geometrical shape, usefully with the mirror surface, which is applied in my RA sarcophagus, or you should use the specific laser, which is on its own the generator of the waveform, scalar waveform.
Yeah, and then in as I had read and understood, you can somehow program the PSI generator, the pendant generator. You can program it with healthy information, either the childhood picture of an individual user, or with a generic health information from infants or placenta, etc. And this then starts a meat to fine-tune or entanglement, let's say, with the damaged cells or whatever is damaged in our body, and then this can help to restore the closer to the original states. Is that correct, my understanding?
Yes, and this is precisely based upon the implication of the holographic principle, which I formulated in August 2012, which states that if the being is entirely in its every matrix point, then every matrix point is not simply different from any other matrix point, but is unique. And if you have two copies of the same unique and non-local wave matrix, you can transmit information from one copy to another copy remotely and instantaneously, because in the quantum locality, where there is no time and space, they constitute the same systematic whole, you see? So our generators function as lenses, you see? So like our eye, you see, you change the shape of your eye crystal so that you can see something clearly either close to your eyes, right, or far away, right?
Correct.
Depending on the shape of your eye crystal, you see different things, either close to you or far away from you. Correct. The same with our chromosome, it changes its shape. You see, as Schrödinger has said, right, an aperiodic crystal, right? So it is a polymer crystal. This is what it is. And you can transmit information between the pendant and your chromosome remotely and instantaneously, because they have the same refraction code, and systematic holes with the same refraction code, they constitute the same systematic hole in the quantum locality. That's why it is called quantum non-locality, you see? So, and we code this crystals, wave crystals, because the universe is 93% energy and 7% particles. Yeah. So everything is basically wave crystals. So we are wave crystals. We are not just energy, clouds, aura clouds. You see, we are precisely crystals. During cell division, we get crystallized, you see, and in regards quantum computing, they bring them into close to absolute zero state, zero temperature state, right? Yes. And they consider thermodynamics to be stochastic, meaning based upon entropy and chaos. But vice versa, you see, the warm-blooded animals are more coherent than the cold-blooded animals. And cold-blooded animals are more coherent than crystals, mineral crystals, you see. And the warm-blooded animals with consciousness are more coherent than just warm-blooded animals without consciousness. And so warm-blooded animals with self-consciousness are more coherent than warm-blooded animals just with consciousness, you see? And temperature all plays a specific role, you see? So it gets crystallized during these warm states. They get energy, fire, prana, whatever. It's crystallized during cell division, right? Changing the shape, like our eye crystal, right? And you can influence this cell division, the shape of a chromosome, by wearing crystals which are coded with your own refraction code, and they have more crystal coherence than you at the time because you are sick, right? So I'll give you a simple example so that you understand. Our ancestors used serpentinite, which is a stone. I have this serpentinite on the floor in my clinic, right? Why? Because it's a sacred stone of our ancestors. Why it is sacred? Because it is stone consisting of granite, which is a crystal, and marble, which is not a crystal, right? But this marble, which is a part of the serpentinite, it is iron oxide, you see? And our blood is also iron oxide. But this serpentinite also has a granite part, which is a crystal. That's why serpentinite remotely transfers its crystal structure upon us, improving, correcting the crystal structure, coherence of our chromosomes, improving, correcting the structural damage in chromosomes. Our ancestors put the pieces of serpentinite into their metal armor. They put a piece of serpentinite onto the newlywed bed, and when the child was born, they were transferring the piece of serpentinite to the bed of their child. You see, okay. So they understood this. You see, because they had this understanding of the infinite and eternal being, you see, and the preservation of this eternal idea of this eternal and infinite being was the major point of their existence, not eating and drinking, but precisely this idea that you can be connected to this eternal and infinite being in a conscious way, and you can control your state, your body by this connection, you see? Yeah. Because still a wave is non-local. This is the only way of how you can transmit information, quantum computing, remotely and instantaneously. So we use lasers to code, to change the refraction code of the crystal so that it gets connected to you remotely and instantaneously. And we got our company, we got the successful clinical trials of aspirin, holographic aspirin, which was used in the digital bioholographic form, and an analog Electret polymer-based form as a pendant, right? And there are many testimonials for over these years, you see, more than 10 years. And for example, I'll give you an example. There was a case when the client had a very dark black bruise on the hip. The client fell and the bruise was on the hip. And this client put this 3 rod generators, metal shapes, in the middle of the bruise over the night. And in the morning, there were white spots. You see, so the black bruise and white spots in the places where these generators were applied over the night. Then people testified that in the case of neurodermatitis, there were big improvements, and they were sending pictures. We have pictures of this improvement. Even in the case of melanoma mole, the generator was applied to the mole, and the mole got dried up and fell off within 4 days.
Wow. I had the experience with the bruises by applying magnets, the north pole of the magnet on the bruise, and on the location, as big as was the magnet, that area was as well cleared. Maybe around it, the area was still black or whatever with the blood, but where it was the magnet, north pole of the magnet, it was clearing it, let's say, within 24 hours, something similar as what you described, but only with the bruises, not with other dermatitis, etc. Interesting. So coming back to I understand how, let's say, if we're gonna invent the formations of our DNA, childhood, etc., and then this emitting, it can help us. Now, the question that I had from one of my, let's say, subscribers, and he said, okay, if we need, if this technology needs, let's say, to have 2 identical waves, we have the healthy one, and then we have the unhealthy, damaged DNA for whatever reason during the years, or cells, or chromosomes. How we can ensure that only it will be one way imposing the health, let's say the healthy waveforms, they will be tuned and they will fix the damaged DNA, the damaged chromosome, and not the damaged, the frequency of the damaged chromosome or DNA will not, let's say, somehow interact with the healthy one, and it will not have the same benefits. So let's say how we can be sure that if the wave genome requires 2 identical signals to work, one is damaged. So how exactly it works in these cases, if you understood what he's asking?
First of all, lasers, these specific lasers, right, with mirrors inside, which are the generators of the scalar waveform, right?
Yeah.
They create the coherent systematic whole, you see? And this application of the laser itself is healing. It has healing properties, right? So this was not understood by Garyaev. He thought that he can transmit, for example, smallpox from the photograph of a child with smallpox onto the adult, healthy adult at this moment, right? When he records the digital biohologram from this photograph with the child with smallpox, and he applies this digital biohologram onto the adult with no smallpox at the moment, he thought that he can transmit smallpox from this photograph onto the adult. To basically infect the adult with smallpox by digital biohologram, right? Which has the implication of using this technology as a bioweapon, right? Of
can be definitely
destruction potential, right? Mass destruction bioweapon. So this is not true. So he was mistaken. He simply did not understand the nature of the scalar waves. He didn't have theory of scalar waves, and as I said, he used only the wide electromagnetic spectrum vocabulary, right? And he was talking about homonymy, which is contradictory use of the same structure in different contexts, which is completely also mistaken. Because if we are unique, every instance, you understand, is unique and non-local. So it cannot be that the same structure has different meanings in different contexts. You understand, right? Because the structure is always, every moment is unique, you see? So your eye changes your eye shape and every moment is unique.
Yeah.
So, and lasers, red lasers. So my company uses different lasers. So green lasers, red lasers, so, and different models of lasers. So in Russia, red lasers are effectively used in agriculture. You see, so the application of the coherence signal is on its own beneficial, you see, is on its own restoring the structural coherence of the systematic whole. If you use a more advanced laser with mirrors, which is itself a scalar waveform generator, you increase the ability of the laser to improve, restore the structural coherence of the systematic whole. You see? So if you use electret, which has stable structure, you see? So which cannot be violated, broken, so that you can use it continuously over time and space. It has beneficial qualities which are not vulnerable, you see, not changeable by some conditions, right? Physical and chemical conditions, magnetic conditions. Then this electret will overpower, you see, non-locally and remotely, like a lens, overpower the structural malfunction of your systematic whole, you see. That's why our ancestors were wearing jewelry. What is jewelry? Jewelry is the scalar waveform capacitor, you see, because metal attracts infrared radiation, right? You go outside, your ring gets cold, you go inside, it gets warm, you see, and the crystal creates a scalar wave, you see, so it's an analog scalar waveform capacitor, you see. So, and I highly advise of using this kind of analog scalar wave capacitors. You should use everything that is available to you to improve the structural coherence of your chromosomes as wave crystals. So, in other words, to conclude, if you have the electret-based side generator, you can be sure that it will overpower the structural damage in your chromosomes if you also, of course, follow some other essential recommendations in your diet, in your lifestyle. If you live in toxic environment, right, in the military zone, subjected to psychotronic weapons of the military grades, you know, and or you are in the vicinity of nuclear bomb explosion, you see, so electric-based side generator will not help you. But if you have a healthy environment with no toxic substances around you, because all of the toxic substances, polymers with broken crystalline structure, they influence your own crystalline structure, you see. So every toxic substance violates, destroys your chromosomal structure.
Okay, this is I think this is, it makes sense. It's logical that if we are inside in a toxic environment which bombarding continuously our cells, of course some no matter we need the sarcophague, the one that you have the big machines to be very often over there to start cleaning. Otherwise, yes, the pendant alone is not gonna help although it is, if we are moving out of this toxicity, or this toxic environment, of course, the results, they will be accelerate. I have one more question about that, but before that, what about babies, for example, that they are coming with damages before birth? And they have some diseases that they were developed during when they were in the uterus of the mother. Does this can the PSI generator somehow assist these individuals, these babies, or it is or it cannot? I don't know. I'm just let's say they are born babies or newborn babies that they are born with some inherited diseases or something went wrong during the gestation. Can the PSI generators, the wave optics, or the wave genome, this energy help them as well? Have you?
You see, it is hard to say in these general terms because, first of all, Wave Genome LLC is an American company, and we are not allowed by FDA to make any medical conclusions, especially without even advice as of independent researchers. For cases that we do not see, every case is individual. So this question is
you're right. It cannot be answered.
Of my, I would say, competence at this moment, because every case is unique. But I can tell you one thing: more close to the mass condition right now of turbocancers, long COVID, is that of these nanobots. You see, people say, "Oh, we are infected with nanobots." So, a very important thing I would say about this is that. Graphene is biodegradable. It is biocompatible. All this kind of nanobots, they are biocompatible, biodegradable, and basically they are just viruses, so-called viruses, which are simply nucleotides with incoherent structure, with destroyed crystalline structure. That's it, basically, in lipid capsule. And attached with some superconductor like graphene. So these are what nanobots are. There's nothing else. So basically, they're simply superfluous nucleotides. Whatever people tell you about nanobots, that's all they are. And COVID-19, so-called SARS-CoV-2, are simply the application of CRISPR-Cas9, which is infamous for its lack of precision of, attaching, self-attaching of these homologous nucleotides to each other. That's why any organ could have failed during COVID-19, right? So, because they are flying around your system and can attach itself to any homologous nucleotide in any organ. So, to deal with this, you first need to get rid of these superfluous nucleotides. If you use electrets like Ayurvedic medicine, Kistalhindi, very effective, quercetin, resveratrol on their own, of course, eventually you get rid of this superfluous nucleotides. But if you have some very strong neurological damage, right? Autoimmune reactions, you cannot walk without pain. You have short memory loss, and etc. So heavy neurological damage, you need to apply some specific chemicals, which acidic chemicals, alkaline chemicals, which deal with our acidic structure, where nucleotides, the nucleic acids, basically. So we need to deal with these superfluous nucleotides via resveratrol, which is generic ceftriaxone. This is the low molecular form of sodium. Sodium is an alkali, and this alkali literally eliminates superfluous nucleotides in your system. It is very effective. It is used to treat cancer. HIV, AIDS, long COVID, encephalitis, and Ebola in Africa intravenously. 2 grams a day for 1 month and a half. And it is so effective that during the HIV pandemic in the States in the late 1990s, early 2000s, it was forbidden to get prescribed by the doctors because this pandemic was basically the artificially made pandemic, the same as the so-called COVID-19 pandemic.
Can you repeat? Can you repeat the formula, because Mike talked at that moment, and the dosage that you mentioned, the formula, it was overcome by the sound from Mike, so it was not clear.
What was the name of the medicine? What was the name of the medicine anyway that you mentioned? That's what I don't know. Rocephin or what?
The name of the drug is Rocephin. Rocephin. 2 grams a day intravenously. You can take it in the hospital, or you can just do it just to the vein.
The vein, yeah. Okay. Very, very, very interesting. Definitely, I mean, that was the pandemic or the plandemic. It was, of course, it was a fake one. I am, as you potentially have seen or you remember, I'm dealing a lot with mainly with the nanoparticles, how to disengage them and remove them, because they tend to cluster together. Then they are using biological material from our body, proteins, nucleotides, etc. And then they form all this fake synthetic biology, which of course affects our body. And I think due to their volume to size ratio, all the atoms and the electrons that are concentrated in the surface of the particle, and this changes the chemical and electrical properties. That's why I think they aggregate and agglomerate, and they attract immediately the protein corona, as they call it, when it comes in the blood. And I think the electromagnetic pulses, they disrupt this concentration of the atoms and electrons and break some bonds, and then the body can see them, the immune system can see them and try to flush them out. And then, of course, we assist the body to flush them out. So we have this problem with all nanoparticles, that they form different things. Yes, they accumulate around them proteins and acid and amino acids, etc. And then the virus, whatever virus it is, it's not something biology. It's not like the microbes or the parasites that can be organic biology. Virus, as you said, there are just some proteins and or nucleic acids encapsulated in the envelope, which is mainly proteins and lipids, mainly lipids. So yeah, and then with your technology, definitely you can start cleaning up. And the formula that you said earlier, that we are alkaline and we balance the acidity of the acid, and then the body can start, if we give it the right building blocks, if we give them the right substances, the right nutrients, the right enzymes to break down other structures, then it can start healing. But it's not easy, especially when you are in a toxic environment. First, we need to detox. We need to clean, I think, the elimination pathways, and then cautiously choose what we are doing, what we are thinking, what we are putting in our body, and at the same time using the right technology, the right substances, the right products that will help us to clean and heal. Heal, which is forbidden to say in the Western world.
So, but I mentioned Rocephin not just to promote Rocephin.
Yes, of course, not promotion.
So I mentioned Rocephin for the other purpose. So Rocephin is a very strong drug, and if you use it for a long time, you lose weight, a lot of weight, right? And you can get thinning of your retina, and you can get rainbow artifacts in your eyesight, which is very scary. So effective it is, you see. So we have experience with getting these artifacts, with getting them away, with getting
so to eliminate
with eliminating these artifacts. So we were using among many things we were using as experiment, we were using Nepalese singing bowl, right?
Yeah.
These big balls. I have very big balls, much bigger than this one. And if you put this ball on their head and you have the stick like this, see? And you strike the ball with the stick, and you get the scalar wave going. And these rainbow artifacts, they were going away literally within 2 to 3 minutes.
Wow.
So effective the scalar wave technology is.
Wow.
So our Wave Genome LLC Ra helmet is the more advanced version of the Nepalese ball.
Correct.
So this was the point that I wanted to make in regards to Rasefin. And in regards to the usage of electromagnetic signals to break this incoherent lumps, right, of nucleotides, superfluous nucleotides, there is a very important objection. The world is 93% energy and only 7% particles.
Correct.
So basically, these lumps of nucleotides are energy, 93%, incoherent energy.
Incoherent, yes.
So electromagnetic pulses are also incoherent energy, you see. So if you add to the lump of the incoherent energy more incoherent energy, right, you simply increase the incoherence of the systematic whole. You destroy the systematic whole more. That's why, of course, you can use electromagnetic pulse,
square wave,
temporarily for a short period of time, which should be followed by the application of the scalar waveform generator.
I agree.
We put your incoherent energy structure into the crystal coherence. What is crystal coherence? Is the not simply coherent scalar wave diffraction grating. It is the scalar wave refraction grating with the optical purity of chirality, you see, so that you get precise focus, like when you take photographs, right? You have a lens which should be focused to see specific object. If you do not have a focus, your vision is blurry, your photograph is blurry, so you do not get any kind of photograph, any kind of result.
I fully agree. That's why, let's say, because I know the benefits, the plus and the minus of the electromagnetic square wave pulses and the limitations they have, let's say, put it like that. And that's why I'm so much interested as well in your products, because it can be complementary and to balance any the side effects or the limitations to reduce, or when they are combined, it's maximize the output, let's say, the benefits for the user. Some benefits with one, definitely, it's, as you said, it may increase the incoherence, but then we can fine tune it with the scalar waves, and then expand this with the scalar waves, with the right product, with the selenium that you have and the other products that you have, to start now healing. We can potentially use, I don't know, like a violet ray Tesla device, that they were used on the 20s and the 30s with the blue ray for temporary to heal local, I don't know, pains and things like that. I don't know, I'm just thinking technology and products that they can be used complementary to each other and holistically they have an added effect instead of cancelling each other. And I think with your products, either used individual for certain cases and definitely complementary with my products to correct any issues that the electromagnetic frequencies they're causing and fine-tune again the body.
Yes, the usage of electromagnetic pulses, right, the pulse technology, is similar to Russian sauna, right? So you go to Russian sauna, you increase the vibration of your cells, and the vibration of the coherent cells can sustain itself, but the vibration of the incoherent cells can sustain itself, and the cancer cells get destroyed in Russian sonar. I have cases when, in my practice, when people get cured from cancer in Russian sauna, right?
Russian sauna.
Russian sauna, right. Temperature should be above 70 degrees Celsius. And COVID-19, for example, SARS-CoV-2, gets destroyed at the 70 degrees Celsius. And its spike protein gets destroyed at 40 degrees Celsius. But Russians, they usually go after sauna, they go to the ice, you see, to the snow. The snow is the crystal, right?
Yes.
And crystal gets helps people put the structure back into the coherent state after this increase of the vibration of the cell.
To cool down. I had a similar experience. It was not in Russia itself, although I have been 3 times in Russia. I had in a Kazakhstan winter, I was a little bit sick and I went in a sauna. And then I had, high temperature sauna. I was a little bit sick and they had some plants that they were beating me over there. I don't remember the name of the plant. And then, more than 70 degrees. And immediately after, I was, let's say, strongly advised, and I did it in icy water. Water with ice, and I jump in to cool down. I don't know. To put back the incoherence back to the coherence, probably. What you just described it, yeah.
And this 201 event was precisely the application of the biological binary weapon developed by DARPA in preparation for the war with Russia, you see? Yeah. And they collected Russian RNA beforehand, and this death from turbocans in the West is just side effect of this plan. And it was presented to the public as the so-called gene drive or safe drive program by DARPA, created by Dan Wattendorf, who went on to work for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation afterwards, you see? And the idea of this program was to infect a human with a virus, which would self-replicate. So this virus will get inserted into human RNA and DNA via homology, and via reverse transcriptase, this virus will replicate itself over and over again, thus making a human produce his or her own vaccine. You see? So this was the idea. So, what I have just said, it was published on the DARPA webpage. You see? Yeah. I even have a screenshot of this.
So can we describe it that initially the first cases that they were presenting as it was a virus, basically potentially it was from, it could have been generated, the health problem generated by high frequencies, or energy, and then they inject the transcript, the mRNA created the problem. So they say they injected the mRNA to create the spike protein. Basically that injection, that mRNA, it was the problem. And not only the mRNA, because only Pfizer and Moderna had the mRNA back then, but as well, I don't know, AstraZeneca and the other ones, they had the one that they would inject the people. That was the real problem that caused problems to the people. Can you say something like that?
Well, they used electrophoresis, and Bill Gates actually at that moment created the new paradigm of vaccine administration via electrophoresis, you see. Yeah. So I have published an article on my web site, you can still read it, criticizing this idea and telling that electrophoresis is used in creating genetically modified organisms. So you use electrophoresis to destroy DNA, to break DNA, and so that you can insert artificial external inserts into DNA, you see, afterwards. So, and after my criticism, maybe other people criticize too, but they stopped this program, so they didn't do it. But the initial idea in the COVID-19 pandemic was to apply vaccines via electrophoresis, and had they been successful in this project, the whole issue of so-called vaccines, mRNA vaccines or other vaccines, these vaccines would have been much more harmful
Exactly,
to
of
people
course.
than just injections, you see. And when people say that there are no viruses, right, and this whole thing was 5G or 6G or 7G or whatever, they don't realize that the world is 93% energy and 7% particles. So it doesn't matter, you see, whatever you say, whether it was just substance or it was radiation. Essentially, it does not matter. You see, what matters is the structure. And when they say there are no viruses, and all these viruses, RNA viruses, they were not isolated.
Yeah.
Ebola, Zika, COVID, influenzas, and they were not. All these RNA viruses were not isolated. They are all HIVs, all viruses of human immunodeficiency, because they're homologous to human nucleotides. They insert themselves into human RNA DNA, and that's why immune system attacks itself. That's why you have autoimmune reactions. And then the immune system destroys itself. You have syndrome of immunodeficiency. You see, so they're all HIVs, and they were not isolated because of homology, because they are so homologous to human nucleotides that you couldn't split where is the virus, where are human own nucleotides. That's why every human has its own or her own virus. But this does not mean that there are no chemical component to the virus. Of course, there is a chemical component, electromagnetic component, biological component, any other component there is to this virus.
And that's
because
why,
systematic whole has many components, like a human body on different levels.
And that's why as well, some people in the same environment, some they will be sick with the same symptoms, and some they will not be sick, even if they're in the same environment, even if they breathe what the other is exhale, etc. So because it has to do with individual conditions of the body, the homology, correct? And if someone...
The structure, it has to do with structural coherence of every systematic whole in the body. You see?
Yeah.
So if you are really capable of withstanding this attack by binary biological weapon, if you are capable, this means that you have a very coherent structure of your chromosomes, and you annul any external linear signal by your own scalar wave. So humans produce their own scalar wave. As I said, Schrödinger in 1944, in his seminal work, What is Life, on the very first pages, he wrote that a chromosome is an aperiodic crystal. You see, and this aperiodic crystal produces the scalar wave. Any crystal produces the scalar wave. By the way, Schrödinger was wrong in the other thing, so he was right.
It doesn't mean that everything was correct. I agree with that. So that's why as well, because we can produce scalar wave potentially. That's why we have the placebo and the nocebo effect. We can, let's say, get well, or we can get problems simply with our thoughts, simply with our beliefs. Is that correct? It has to do with
so precisely, and we can actually not only there is the placebo effect. We can actually coach electrets with our thoughts. You see, our ancestors were using this analog technology for millennia, you see, and not only when the electret goes from the liquid crystal state into the solid crystal state. You can coach, electrets even without any transformations, you see. So you can code environment with your thoughts. And this is just bare physical facts.
Yeah. One question related to what you said at the beginning, that this technology, that it was developed, what your base that you had was developed by KGB in the past, etc. Just to clarify for the people that are not very familiar, or they have some paradigms when they hear some trigger words, they think immediately only something negative, etc. So that technology was developed not only, let's say, as a weapon against whatever the opposers, but as well for protection of their own stuff. Is that correct?
Well, you see, the point with the state of technology right now in the West, I call it electrophoresis euphoria. You see, so all this digital health programs by Trump, right? This is only right now the application of frequencies and the attempt to transfer pharmaceuticals with frequencies, like electrophoresis, right, in Russia. Yep. If you go in Russia to any resort, which are still left after the destruction of the USSR, Soviet Union, right? Yeah. You see all kinds of machines with very high frequencies, low, ultra high frequencies, ultra low frequencies, various kinds of lasers. So the West is far behind the USSR, the Soviet Union, which does not even exist anymore. You see? So, and in the Soviet Union, these frequencies immediately were applied to treat people. So there was the social health system, and every discovery was immediately tested on humans, how the humans will be healthier, will have longer lifespan than before. You see, there was the free education, free healthcare, and all these resources were free and obligatory for every worker. Doesn't matter who he was, the director of the enterprise, the factory, or the factory worker, the scientist, the teacher, the engineer. Everybody had the obligatory resort
periodic vacations or treatment.
Vacation for 1 month a year, sometimes 1 month and a half. You see, so for example, microwave ovens, and they immediately tested this technology on humans, and they found out the application of microwaves creates cancer, gives people cancer, and they had forbidden humans, Soviet Union citizens, to use microwave ovens. This is why in the Soviet Union there were no microwave ovens. You see, so you should never use microwave oven. You see,
I don't use. Yeah.
So they used immediately on humans how to make Soviet citizen the best citizen in the world. The same is with laser. The lasers, you see, as soon as lasers were invented and came to the, scientific acumen, Russian scientists started to apply lasers on themselves. And so Gareev and Tertishny, the first thing they used lasers on their DNA with the disastrous effects. You see, they basically destroyed their DNA. So this is to the point that the lasers which create coherent signal, this is not the gist of my technology. You see, so you can make great damage with lasers. So, and after that, Tertishny, the co-author of Gareev, he got sick and immediately got out of the game. So, and Gareev himself got a daughter with the Down syndrome because of this use of the indiscriminate use of lasers. So, so in the Soviet Union, there were, of course, the military application of this technology and the civilian application of this technology. Yeah. And when this technology got to the stage of not just lasers, But for these specific lasers, which were the lasers with the internal mirrors, which were creating the scalar waves, which were the scalar waveform generators, right?
Yeah.
These lasers, they cannot harm people. These are therapeutical devices.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is what I use. I do not just use lasers indiscriminately.
Of course.
I use specific lasers, you see, and my technology cannot be used to harm people. It's a beneficial technology, it's a therapeutical technology, and you can even treat people remotely and instantaneously, but it cannot be used for military attack, destruction, and this was not understood by Garyaev. Garyaev didn't understand this because he didn't have theory of wave optics and chromosomes and wave optics and wave crystals. He didn't have a theory. His theory was wrong. His theory was the theory of so-called linguistic homonymy. He called his theory linguistic wave genome, which is a completely wrong interpretation. As I said, the structural unit cannot have different meanings, opposite meanings in different continuums. This idea of Garyaev is a completely wrong idea from the point of view of the non-local and unique, you see, structural systematic whole.
Okay, so if someone, let's say, is interested to use the PSI generator, one is sufficient, or it's better if he has, let's say, 2 or 3 on the body at the same time?
Well, I had a client who was the targeted individual, a British woman,
Yes.
and she was heavily subjected to the psychotronic attacks,
Yes.
and she was using my company's raw metal-shaped side generators.
Okay.
She was applying them straight to her skull via bandana.
Yeah.
This is why we produced later the Hara helmet, which was on its own the scale waveform generator of the onion shape and has this multiple side generators around the perimeter.
Yeah.
So she was using this metal-shaped Ra generators for a few years, and with great improvement in her state. And it got to the point when she was able to pass through the metal detector in the airport without ringing.
Without ringing?
Because, she wrote it to me, because she was producing such a strong scalar wave that she was, it's amazing.
Although by individually the object will ring if it was individually. But because she was wearing it, if it was individual, the object, if she was holding it, let's say somebody just take one of these products and walk in the metal detector, it's gonna beep. But here she had 3 of them on her head for so long that has produced so much scalar wave that the metal detector did not detect them, correct?
Yes, metal detector in the airport didn't ring. It is amazing. It's an amazing fact. So you asked me whether you have to use 1 product, 2 products. So our protocol, general protocol, is a client should use a generator on his solar plexus, wearing 24/7, because solar plexus, it's called solar plexus. Plexus meaning the literally the concentration, the intersection of these 2 nerves which go from feet to your brain, right?
Yeah.
They crisscross in your solar plexus, you see, and it is literally the center, your second, you're the center of your system, your systematic whole. And the client should also use the Tesla Selenium, because Tesla Selenium improves the bioconductivity of your cells. And the point with your body is that it is a systematic whole. And when some part of your body lacks innervation, bioconductivity, this part gets alienated from the brain. The brain literally doesn't see this part. And this part gets different kind of apoptosis, cell death.
Yes.
Damage, destruction, infection, cancer, mutation, etc. So fatty tissue, for example, completely or mostly lacks innervation. If you have lipoma on your body and you get a needle, metal needle, and you prickle this lipoma with a needle, you will not feel pain. because lipoma, fatty tissue, lacks innervation. So, and bioconductivity. So you restore the bioconductivity via the high intake of Wave Genome LLC Selenium, which is a semiconductor. So you increase the bioconductivity, and then you structure this bioconductivity into the coherent systematic whole with a correct crystalline structure while wearing electrode-based site generators, which are polymer crystals structured on the nano level with your own refraction code. That is why being one and the same systematic whole with you in the quantum locality, so that this site generator can remotely and instantaneously correct the refraction process, and evolution process in your chromosome. Okay. And as I said, it is the multi-millennia long technology. You see, it is not just like I develop the Soviet Union technology. No.
You just apply the knowledge of millenniums of the whole.
Yeah, the Soviet Union, by the way, destroyed the churches, the bells, the cupolas, the Ladankas. You see, the Soviet Union destroyed the multi-millennia long technology of our ancestors and introduced this frequency-based electrophoresis, you see, which is basically mostly a military kind of technology. You see, ultra low frequency, ultra high frequency, and which actually Lech, Goryaev, and Tertishny apply lasers straight the frequency-based devices, apply them onto the DNA with disastrous result. You see, and these lasers, they came out precisely at the end of the Soviet Union when the whole culture was ready to go to the other level. You see, so beyond this kind of destruction of our multi-millennial long tradition.
So we can say, without making any medical claims, we can say that the combination of the selenium Tesla and the PSI generator, it generally can help a lot the well-being of the individual. I'm not going to use any medical claim, but it helps even those that they have received the modification on their chromosomes. So combining those two products, it's, let's say, most probably it's never 100%, but the majority, they may see improvements in their well-being. Correct?
Yes. For example, woman with a climax, right? When she puts the side generator of her solar plexus, she immediately stopped getting hot flashes and cold sweats. You see, so effective this technology is. So basically, how it works is that when you have a slight malfunction, right? If you are generally healthy, right? You have slight malfunction. So to keep your health, your well-being in the top condition, right? Protected from the psychotronic attacks, from the electromagnetic smoke, from binary biological weapons, infections, and etc. From food, genetically modified food, or maybe you were forced to consume some food which is high in saturated fats, which create the fatty tissue, right, or sugar, right, which gets transformed into triglycerides and into fatty tissue in your body, right? Or you were forced to drink water after reverse osmosis, which deprives water of the crystalline structure. So to combat all these conditions, you wear your side generator 24/7. You take selenium periodically, not all the time, right? You take correct food, right? You eliminate animal proteins, which are very homologous to human proteins, nucleotides, especially pork. That's why pork is forbidden, because swine or pigs nucleotides are very close to human nucleotides. That's why the clinical trials are first produced on rats, then on monkeys, then on swine, and then on humans, right?
Yeah.
So you eliminate casual sex, you marry a virgin, right? And you try to eliminate other consumption of extra superfluous nucleotides. You have fasting, right? Intermediate fasting periodically or all the time. You fast for 16 hours in a row every day. So, and you have this site generator, which is the best device, the best way to increase the coherence of your systematic whole among all this, right? All this ways
in this environment.
increase and preserve the coherence of your systematic whole, right?
Okay.
When you get sick, right, you increase the intake of our digital pharmacy, right? So our site generators, they come with the digital pharmacies, which are produced by laser. They are not produced by frequencies. They are not frequencies per se. They are the digitally recorded laser output in the specific conditions. And they are reproduced and processed also by specific technology. These are not just only white noise or the noise of the laser, right, as Garyaev was producing, right? And the product of Garyaev shows that he didn't understand actually what he was doing, right? He was using, for example, regular music. Regular music doesn't produce theta brain wave states, which are the scalar wave, which are the only states which produces regeneration and clear vision. Theta wave brain state. You see? Yep. So, and Josh of the other scientists with whom I cooperated over these 10 years also used this regular music. This means that they didn't understand. The Garyaev, for example, created a medbed, which was like a coffin. It's a rectangular box. As you understand, rectangular box is not the onion-shaped scalar waveform generator. So he didn't understand, right? So if you get sick, right, you are subjected to psychotronic attack. You use more site generators, medal-shaped, on your skull, or use our Ra helmet, which has multiple site generators around the perimeter, actually 8, because the number 8 is the stable number of electrons, you see, in the atom, around the atom, in the atom, right, around the nucleus. So you use Electrets, our electret-based site generators, together with the Ra helmet, right? Okay. And you use our digital bioholographic pharmacy more often. You apply site generators individualized. Individualized site generators are more effective than generic. You apply straight to the organ where you feel pain. Like when you apply to a bruise, you immediately see the white spot over the night in the place where you applied the site generator. And then when you get more sick, right, you go to the Ra sarcophagus, which is a large-size medical bed that my company produced. And we will devote to this medical bed some other time. Okay, good. So very a little bit more, but just where we can find, let's say, if no customers, if they are persons that are interested, they can find the orders on your wavegenome.com, correct? And then they can send you an email, I think. Yeah, we have the website wavegenome.com. There is the order form, the customer copies order form into his email, fill it up in the email, and we do this because American server provider, internet providing companies, server providing companies. Yeah. At some point, they infected my website with PHP files.
Yeah. So okay, maybe as well through Mike forms, they can contact Mike and he will gonna fill up the form and send to you.
We put the contact form below in the description section of the video that we will upload on YouTube.
And Irene, the sarcophagus, I mean the med bed, this is only in your clinics, or it's sent as well, can be shipped to other countries, or they have to come in your clinic?
No, we produce raw sarcophagus and we sell raw sarcophagus.
And you ship worldwide?
We produce raw sarcophagus in Russia and ship it via Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan to any point in the world.
Okay, including India, because I have, let's say, a customer, my customer, who is very interested in your products, and he was currently he's in India, so he was asking me if you ship in India, which I assume you do ship in India, right?
Yes, we ship all over the world. We ship our products via Swiss courier.
Yeah.
So service door to door, signature required for many years. It is linked to your national postal service website.
Yes.
Like for example, in the United States, it's United States Postal Service website, and in Germany the same thing. They have their website. We give tracking numbers, and the customer can go to their website, which is ems.post, and just track their...
Yes, the shipping. Okay. No, it's clear. I will not take too much time from you. I will allow Mike, give us your experience with the products.
So first of all, I got attacked when I was in Moscow after 3 weeks with psychotronic warfare. So in 2016, I got 5 to 6 vaccines, tetanus and anti-rabies. And when I was still here on the Philippines, let's say my energy and my standing scholar wave was still good, fresh food, sunlight exposure, salt water. But as soon as I got back to Germany in 2017, I got exposed to too much radiation and worse energy, and suddenly I could feel things in my heart when I was standing next to just a fridge, for example, just being exposed to the electromagnetic frequency of a electronic device. I could feel inside of my body things are changing. And then after 8 months, I had very big problems with my brain, like brain inflammation. I couldn't walk upstairs anymore. Then I got into the almost orgonite and crystal stuff, and I could already feel that this is helping me. So of course I was asking questions. What is this all about? And maybe the vaccines have something to do with that. And then via a German distributor of Cloudbusters who is doing work in Africa, he did recommend me. Actually, he's making rain in Africa to make a Greenland. And he did direct me to Wave Genome and Irene Caesar. So therefore, I reached out and I ordered the mini Tesla Psi generator from her for $840, I believe. So it came to me after 2 or 3 or 4 weeks or so, and then I couldn't sleep very good, almost not at all. I was really helpless. That was one of the lowest points in my life because I didn't know what to do. I had the best energy workers working on me, and they could make it better, but only for a few hours or so. And as soon as I applied the Wave Genome on my body, I could sleep. Like it was like a key that is fitting into that hole. But perfectly. It was like the perfect fitting key that had to be applied. And from that moment on, let's say I could really greatly deal with whatever was done on my body with that. I would say mRNA vaccines that already had the nanotechnology within, most definitely, because I know that because I used your EMP product in 2020. And I had the technology and the crystals coming out of my body. And I totally agree with what Irene is saying, because I'm a psychic also. I can feel also the fields, the pulses of your device. And I can also feel the energy of the Wave Genome. and I could also directly sense that the pulsing devices that you produce very fast, they dismantle the chi force of the standing scalar wave, which usually in me is very strong. And this is why I also figured out early, okay, now I have to apply my pendant again. And then specifically with this question, I came forward to Irene, and she directly told me, like, it's always like that. I sense something, I ask Irene, she explained it, and I say, yeah, I know, I could feel it already. And then because of all of this, let's say, spiritual attacks and later on psychotronic attacks that started on me in September 2022. But at this point, I already had the raw pendant, which is actually very good. I had the individualized version actually with that one. And the attacks, of course, they made freaking me out, and I couldn't sleep anymore, and I always had to jump from one country to the other country in order to survive and to get rid of my cell phone. But the raw C generator was always able to totally restore my genome and my chromosomes.
The damage that they had.
Totally, completely. So, well, I mean, at the time that I had it, because at some point I lost it because the attacks, they were just too strong and I couldn't always focus. You know what I mean? So if you lose concentration, you lose things. It's just how it is, you know. But I have to say, I mean, to say it in gain set language, this shit is very good.
it helps you not to lose yourself. It helps you. The Wave Genome product, they help you not to lose yourself. You may lose items.
I would describe it like that, how I feel it. It just restores the chi energy inside of my body. Yeah. It fills me up with power, like chi power, you know. And I had some clients, and this.
We are losing you. Mike, you are frozen. Anyway, thank you very much, Mike, if you can hear me, for your testimony and your experience. Dr. Irene Caesar, thank you very, very much for your time and, of course, all the information that you gave us. I'm sure people, they will come with, I mean, I have already persons, at least 2 or 3 people that they are waiting to hear our interview, and because they want the products. So we will send some orders in the following weeks, I guess, through Mike, until I will buy my own as well. Yeah, it's okay. Yes, it was frozen. I just...
Yeah, I can continue.
Can continue. I don't know. It depends, Dr. Irene, how much is her time.
I just need 2 minutes, and I'm done in 2 minutes. It reminded me always like a tutor, like a tutor or a guru or a trainer or something that reminds me of myself or the source. That's what I would say personally about how I feel the energy of the Wave Genome. It reminds me of myself and of the source. You know, it's all about remembering.
Yeah.
Right?
Excellent.
So I think that's the best way how I can put the mechanisms, the effect of the Wave Genome. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting and very important, your testimony as well. As I said earlier, when you hung up, I just thank you for that. Definitely, it's a technology that it was beneficial in the past from our ancestors, and definitely nowadays in the current environment that we are living, it's not just beneficial. I would say it's necessary. It's mandatory, even if it's not well known in the masses of the population, which is fine. But let's spread out the word. Thank you, both of you, very much for your input and for your time. And of course, we can have potentially follow-up discussions in the future as things developing. Let's see what news we're going to have from Wave Genome. We are looking forward to the new innovations or applications of old knowledge. Let's put it like that. It's application, modern application of old knowledge, which is beneficial for mankind. So
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you as well. Спасибо. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, Irene. See you.
Bye. Thank you.